Career growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you understand how career growth actually works. Welcome to my career growth series where I am breaking down career growth strategies that actually move the needle, especially if you want to work intentionally rather than just working hard and hoping that it pays off. Today, we are diving into my favorite F word, feedback. Let's face the hard truth. If you are not getting feedback, you are not growing as fast as you could be. And the harsh reality, most people are sabotaging their own career growth at the expense of their ego. Let that sink in. In this video, I'm going to cover why feedback matters so much, why many high performers avoid it, and how to collect and use feedback without losing your confidence or peace. Let's get into it. First, let's go ahead and rip off the band-aid and name why it is so hard for you to go about asking for feedback. Is it because you're used to being the reliable one? Do you not want to look unsure or even like you're perhaps behind? Have you had feedback poorly delivered in the past? Or is it truly as deep as your identity being tied to your competence? Here's the thing, you have to shift your perspective and recognize that feedback is not the enemy. Feedback is not an attack on your worth. It is not an attack on your value. Instead, it is an input to your career strategy. Put simply, feedback is data. It's information about how your work is landing, how you're being perceived in the workplace, what your strengths are, or what people may see as even your blind spots. If you watched my previous video on career success, then you know that image plays a large part in advancing your career. And the higher you go in your career, the more intentional you're going to have to be about collecting that feedback. Early in your career, feedback is everywhere. There's someone correcting you. There's someone to review your work line by line. Usually, when you first start your career, you have someone who is mentoring you or helping you adjust to life in the corporate world. But as you advance and as you become more senior, people assume that you already know. I'll give you all a funny example. Now, this is a small example, but the thought process is still the same. So, a few years back, I had a coworker who would send emails, and I noticed that her font was super small. I'm talking 7-point font. And so, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like when you are sending emails, especially when they're client facing, in my mind, 10-point font is the smallest. Like, anything beneath that is just out of pocket. And so I saw several emails come through from her and they were 7-point font. And rather than saying anything, I just again assumed that she knew. I assumed that she was just about that life, right? Like she's like, it's gonna be 7-point and y'all gonna deal with it. And that's just gonna be that. So fast forward about 2 months later, she tells me that a client on a call with her asked her, why do you send your emails in such small font? It is hard to read. Can you please increase the font size? And so she asked me, like, Candace, why didn't you ever tell me that my font was so small? So what she was doing is she had her laptop zoomed in because she's like, my eyesight's not that great. Like, I just prefer to have my screen zoomed in so it looks big on my screen as I'm sending it out. But I didn't realize that I was sending it out in such small font to the receivers of my emails. And so we laugh about this now. I occasionally call her tiny font because it was just a funny thing that happened. But I tell you that story because I am sure there are some things that you are doing and you're doing them unintentionally. You're not even noticing that it is a thing that would be perceived in a way that is anything other than positive from those around you, but they're not telling you because they think you already know. Okay, so if I were to sum up the why feedback matters, it's because it helps you understand how others experience your leadership, course correct early where necessary, and build credibility and trust faster. Also, feedback is biblical. It's why Proverbs tells us that there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. It's because you don't know what you don't know. So wise people don't avoid correction, they use it. Okay, so let's move on to how to collect high quality feedback. Here's the thing, nothing useful typically comes from randomly asking, do you have any feedback for me? And yet, this is so many people's approach to feedback because you've never been taught to do it well. And so, I want to introduce you to the feedback trifecta. It requires you to be specific, ask at the right moment, and diversify your sources. In terms of being specific, check the description for a list of questions you can ask to gather specific feedback. In terms of asking at the right moment, you should not wait until 6 months after the project has ended to ask for feedback. In the same way, as you are closing out the project or completing the thing, it's probably not the right time to ask for feedback at that very moment, but you do want to make sure that it is timely. When it comes to diversifying your sources, people at different levels see you differently. So your peer may see you differently from your direct report, who may see you differently from your manager or other senior level leaders. The important thing when it comes to feedback across the board is to look for patterns in what people are saying. We're all biased. We all have different standards by which we operate, which means that every single piece of feedback you get is not going to be usable. You don't want it. Trust me. Like if I were to have actioned every single piece of feedback I got, let's just say no. But what you'll likely find is that there are some consistent patterns that are important for you to understand so that you can intentionally shape how you are being portrayed in the workplace. Okay, so when it comes to receiving feedback, pause before reacting. You don't need to defend, explain, or try to fix everything all at once. Again, this goes back to my point about some feedback being usable, others being questionable. So there's no point in immediately reacting or responding to the feedback that you receive. I personally look to God to give me the wisdom on what to apply, what to release, and what to revisit later. When you receive feedback, I'd encourage you to pause and ask yourself, what is the signal here? Is this feedback repeated or isolated? And if it's repeated, what's one small adjustment that I can test? When it comes to feedback, growth comes from experimentation, not perfection. You're not going to change everyone's mind overnight. And that's absolutely not the point. The point is to understand how you're being perceived, know how you want to be perceived, identify the gap between the two of those, and then take steps to close the gap. The point is that you know how you want to be perceived in the workplace. Feedback is telling you how you're actually perceived in the workplace. And so there's likely a gap between the two. Feedback gives you that awareness so then you can start to take whatever steps necessary to close that gap. Remember, feedback does not define you, it informs you. It is simply telling you how people perceive you today, which could change tomorrow and the next day. And the whole point of feedback is to just be intentional in your actions so you are actively working to shape your image in the workplace. And so I'm going to leave you with this final thought. If you want to accelerate your career growth, don't wait to be told what to fix. Go collect the feedback and use it wisely. Feedback, when done right, is not meant to shrink you, but to sharpen you. All right, so I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, please be sure to check out the other videos that are a part of this career growth series so you can make this year your best career year yet. Until next time, friends.